Hi Stretford, it's Mrs Brooks and I'm going to be reading chapter 3 of My Brother's Name is Jessica by John Boyne. Let's have a quick recap of chapter 2. So a new neighbour has moved in 2 doors down from Sam, and Sam goes and introduces himself as he thinks the boy's the same age as him. He's called David Fugue. But the initial meeting is difficult. It turns out that his family have downsized and they're waiting for the economy to pick up, and talks about his house with the swimming pool and the cinema room in the basement, and instantly makes Sam feel inferior. We also learn in chapter 1 that Sam's brother Jason, the boy that he looks up to the most, has announced to the family that he's transgender, but his mum and dad won't talk about it. And then at the end of chapter 2, Sam's nemesis, person he hates most, David, has just spilled Jason's transgender secret to the class. Chapter 3, By the Lakes. When half term arrived and we had a week off school, it came as something of a relief to me not to have to deal with all the gossip anymore. And I can only imagine what a release it was for my brother Jason, who was keeping his head down and spending more time in his room than with his friends. Rumours had been swirling around the school like plastic bags blowing in the wind, and almost no one was speaking to me. But whenever I walked into a room, I could hear people sniggering behind my back. Someone put a bra in my locker, and when I took it out, intending to throw it in the bin, one of the janitors happened to be walking by, and he told me that I was a filthy, good-for-nothing, perving over girls' clothes, and I needed locking up. Steal it off someone's washing line, did you? He asked, practically spitting in my face. Wouldn't have been tolerated in my day. Bring back national service, that's what I say. Someone else left a makeup case on my desk, and when I picked it up, the powder flew out, falling all over my jumper, and everyone said I'd been putting mascara on in the toilets. When I pointed out that mascara went on eyes, and this was clearly blusher, which went on cheeks, so the joke was on them, the words were barely out of my mouth before I regretted what I'd said, and the whole class fell around laughing. And when I went to the boys' toilets, everyone standing at the urinals called me a perv and accused me of looking at their willies, which made no sense at all, because 5 reasons why this made no sense at all. 1, I'm not gay. 2, my brother Jason isn't gay. 3, just because my brother Jason thinks he's my sister doesn't make him gay anyway. 4, even if my brother Jason was gay, which he isn't, that wouldn't mean that I was gay. 5, and even if none of that was true and my brother Jason was gay and I was gay, I'd still have better things to do with my time than try to sneak a peek at their tiny, shriveled up little willies, which are totally gross anyway. There'd been a lot of discussion at home a few months earlier about whether we should take a holiday during our week off, and it proved a far more complicated decision than anyone might have expected. Somewhere hot, said my brother Jason, who liked sunshine. Somewhere cold, I said, who didn't. The weather is the least important of our concerns here, said Mum. I don't mind a driving holiday, said Dad, flicking through an atlas he'd left open on the kitchen table and taking his glasses off as he ran a finger along the motorway. All the way from Calais to Andorra. How long do you suppose that would take? How would everyone feel about a camper van? I've always rather fancied the idea. I don't think France is a very good idea, said Mum. What with all the anti-European sentiment going around at the moment, the parliamentary party might think I was making some sort of statement by going there. When the PM eventually goes, we don't want to give my enemies any unnecessary ammunition. You have enemies, Mum? I asked, looking up in concern. Some, no more than anyone else in my position. So Europe is a whole out, asked Dad, the entire continent? Well, not necessarily, she replied. We just have to be selective, that's all. It's important that I'm seen to be completely supportive of Europe, while at the same time opposing absolutely everything it stands for. I'd quite like to go to Prague, said my brother Jason. I've been reading a lot of Kafka lately, and they have a museum dedicated to him there. Is the Czech Republic in the EU? Asked Mum. I think so, yes. How about Italy? Asked Dad. The statue of David, the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is in Paris, I said. Italy's too unstable anyway, said Mum. There's always an election going on, and that's the last thing I need. Greece? Actually, I've always wanted to see Athens, she said, perking up a little. But what message does it send, do you think, that I'm offering support to them while flying in the face of EU austerity? It could just mean that we got a cheap flight, I said. Don't be ridiculous. Look, she declared, raising her voice now, as if she was about to make a speech in the House, and I felt a sudden urge to shout, "Order, order, the Right Honourable Lady will be heard." I'm not opposed to Greece, and as you all know, I bow to no one in my appreciation of feta cheese and olives, but I just think there are too many variables. It's a big world out there. Can't we think of somewhere that makes sense on every level? Ireland might be nice, I suggested. Well, now you're just being deliberately unhelpful, said Mum, rolling her eyes. They'll accuse me of favouring a soft border. Honestly, Sam, if you're not willing to take this conversation seriously, then maybe you should just go out and play. Go out and play? I asked, wondering whether she thought I was still 5 years old. Australia, suggested Dad. Too far. The flight alone would kill me. Japan. You know I can't stand Chinese food. You do realise that China and Japan are completely different countries? Asked my brother Jason. How about America? Asked Dad. If we went to Washington, then perhaps we could... Before you even begin to make some ludicrous suggestion, said Mum, you need to understand that presidents only meet prime ministers, not members of another country's cabinet. But I suppose we could always get some good social media pictures that suggest we've been in talks with important people. Is there a Disneyland in Washington? I asked. Yes, it's called the White House. Is there anything that Sam and I might actually like to do there? Asked my brother Jason irritably. Spend time with your family? Suggested Mum. Honestly, you boys, your father and I take care of you throughout the year, and then the moment we propose a holiday where we can spend time together as a family, all the pair of you do is complain. I don't know why we bother, I really don't. In the end, we didn't even get on a plane, driving instead to the Lake District for a few days, where we went on long walks. Mum sat on rocks while Dad took pictures of her reading the selected poetry of William Wordsworth and staring off into the distance, as if she wasn't quite sure who she was or what she was doing there. But when we returned to the hotel every night, the reception was always terrible. The Wi-Fi was never working, so he couldn't post them online. He ended up having a fight with the manager over a leaky shower, and he declared the entire thing a complete waste of time. From the start, though, the holiday hadn't gone well. There had been almost no discussions of what my brother Jason had told us a few months earlier, and while I wasn't surprised that Mum and Dad were refusing to talk about it, I wondered when or if he might bring it up again. It was the kind of thing that the phrase "the elephant in the room" had been invented for. Only the elephant was squashed into the back seat of the car with us, following behind whenever we went for a walk and pulling over an extra chair the moment we sat down for meals. We stuck to safe and uncontroversial subjects throughout, and I found myself veering between embarrassed frustration and sort of bottled up hysteria. When Dad asked me casually over dinner one night whether I'd given any thought to what I might like to do with my life when I was older, his question brought to an end a 10-minute silence around the table, and I practically screamed out, yes, a fireman, no, a doctor, no, a librarian, no, a carpet fitter, or a painter and decorator, or I could work in a zoo, maybe be a vet, maybe a fireman. No, I already said fireman, didn't I? In fact, I grew so frantic running through the list of every job available to me that when I finally calmed down, everyone in the room was turned in my direction, staring at me as if I'd lost my mind. It was like I'd been discovered listening to my Ed Sheeran record once again. Well, it's good to keep your options open anyway, said Dad quietly as he took a sip from his pint of real ale, which he didn't like very much but thought made him look like a man of the people in photographs. On our last night there, Mum was recognised by one of the other guests, a woman in her 60s with hair so tall and such an unnatural shade of blue that she reminded me of Marge Simpson. "Hope you don't mind," said the woman, coming over and extending a hand. "You are who I think you are, aren't you?" "Well, I suppose that depends who you think I am," said Mum. "The Cabinet Minister, Deborah Wather, am I right?" Mum nodded and smiled. "I had to come over to say thank you," said the woman, "for all your help getting us out. You're too young to remember, but I was one of those who protested about Ted Heath taking us into the common market in the first place. Why on earth tie ourselves to a bunch of second-rate countries who eat all sorts of strange meats for breakfast and are always starting wars with each other? That's what I wanted to know. And good Lord, most of them don't even speak English. 40 years we've been stuck with them. Now, finally, the nightmare is over, thanks to people like you." Mum shifted in a chair, looking a little uncomfortable. "Well, I'm not sure that's exactly how I define our European partners," she said, "and of course, I'll still have to work with them in the—" "It's their loss and they know it," continued Marge Simpson. "They all wanted to be aligned with us. What was it Cecil Rhodes said? Ask any man what nationality he would prefer to be, and 99 out of 100 will tell you that they would prefer to be an Englishman." He was quite right too. When the PM finally goes, "I do hope you'll run for the top job. You're exactly what we need. Someone who can stand up to Johnny Foreigner." "At the moment, there is no vacancy," said Mum, "so naturally haven't even considered my own ambitions. The job now is to find a way to protect British interests well." "Yes, yes," said the woman, dismissing these banalities with a wave of the hand. "You're not on question time now, dear. There's no need for the blather. We know where you stand. Let me tell you, over the last few years, the area I live in has completely changed. My next-door neighbours, my own next-door neighbours, are Pakistani. If you can believe it, from somewhere near Delhi, they tell me. Or was it Seoul? One or the other. The North Island. I know that much. And these days, I can't even walk down the street without seeing some Nancy boy trotting along hand in hand with his boyfriend. What does the Queen think? That's what I'd like to know. All those handsome young men she surrounds herself with in Buckingham Palace, the footmen and valets and so on. Are any of them Nancy boys? Not on your life. And you must understand, I'm the least prejudiced person you could ever meet. I even have a CD of Elton John's greatest hits in my car. But I just don't see why these people have to come and live in a community they don't fit into. They'd be happier abroad, I'm sure of it. If anything, we'd be doing them a favour." My parents glanced at each other with uncomfortable expressions on their faces, and I could tell that Mum was about to launch into another approved party speech when my brother Jason spoke up. "What if they object to you?" he asked. "I beg your pardon," said the woman, turning to look at him for the first time. "I asked, what if they object to you?" he repeated. "Not that they're prejudiced, of course, but what if they don't like the idea of living next to someone who feels qualified to decide who should and shouldn't live exactly where they want to?" "Jason, stop," said Mum. "Is this your son?" asked Marge Simpson. "Yes, but he doesn't know what he's talking about." "Why is he wearing his hair like that? He looks like Twiggy in her heyday." "Of course I know what I'm talking about," said my brother Jason indignantly. "I read the newspapers, I watch the news, I spend half my life on the internet. And my mother's a cabinet minister. For pity's sake, I think I have some awareness of what's going on in the world." "Jason," said Dad, raising his voice. "What?" he asked in confusion. "Just stop." "The scarf you're wearing around your neck, young man," said the woman, leaning forward, narrowing her eyes. "I'm sure it's designed for girls, not boys. My granddaughter has one just like it, and if you don't mind my saying so, it makes you look very feminine. Thank you." "Why on earth is the boy thanking me?" she asked, looking around at each one of us in turn. "It wasn't a compliment. Is he a little touched, perhaps? Does he have mental issues?" "He's fine," said Mum. "He's just a teenager, that's all. He's confused." "Oh," she said dismissively. "Well, they're a breed apart. especially the Pakistani ones, said my brother Jason, and the Nancy boys. Actually, historians are pretty sure that Cecil Rhodes was gay. Do you know that? His lover died in his arms, in fact, and he was inconsolable afterwards. Plus, he was a white supremacist and an out-and-out racist. You need to learn some manners, young man, said the woman, shouting now and pointing a gnarly old finger at him. Of the two of us, I think I'm the only one who actually has any manners, he replied. You're just an ignorant old bigot with Marge Simpson hair. What was I thinking? I shouted, delighted that he'd noticed the similarity too. Well, she said, taking a step back and pretending to be terribly offended. I'm sure I didn't come over here to be insulted. Don't say it, Sam, barked Dad, who could see that I was all set to use one of my favourite jokes. I'd better not hold you up any longer, she said, turning back to Mum. I can see you've got difficulties of your own, dear. I just wanted to say thank you, that's all. And when the PM goes, you'll have my support for what it's worth. If you can get your family under control before then, that is. Thank you, said Mum, and I do apologise for my son. The woman snorted a little, threw one final disgusted look at my brother Jason, and disappeared back to the other side of the room. Don't ever apologise for me, said my brother Jason quietly, but his voice like thunder. I will if you're determined to ruin this holiday, aren't you? Asked Dad, turning to him furiously. If you can't be polite with people, then it's best you don't open your mouth at all. So I shouldn't speak, he asked. I shouldn't express an opinion. All things considered, said Dad, it'd be probably better if you didn't. And take that ridiculous scarf off and pull your hair out of that stupid ponytail and do something about that stupid fringe and those pathetic layers that make you look like Rachel from Friends. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to be sitting next to you when you look like that? My brother Jason and I were sharing a bedroom, and that night when we went upstairs there was a real awkwardness between us, something that I'd felt deeply on the night we arrived and that had only grown in the intervening days. Before he made his big announcement, I would love to have shared a bedroom with him again, something we hadn't done since I was a little kid. But now I only felt anxious and uncomfortable, and even though he changed into his pyjamas, obviously while flicking through channels on the television, I took mine into the bathroom and undressed in there, not even looking in his direction when I came out again. As I climbed into bed, however, I noticed that he'd finally released his hair from the ponytail, leaving it falling around his shoulders, and that the scarf had caused so much trouble over dinner was hanging over the back of the chair, while his blue scrunchie was sitting on the dressing table. I wondered what he'd think if I woke up and he'd think if he woke up and they were missing. He didn't know that I'd taken them, of course. But if only one was missing, then he might think he'd just misplaced it. Which was worse, the scarf or the scrunchie? The scarf, I decided, definitely the scarf. Sam? I looked across to the other bed and realised that my brother Jason had been trying to get my attention. What's going on? He said. It's like you're in a dream world. Sorry, I said, shaking my head. I was just thinking of something. He rolled over to his side, still looking at me as he propped his head up on one hand. What? I wondered whether to ask or not, but decided that I didn't do it now. I never would. About school, I said. Yeah. And all the rumours? What about them? Must be upsetting you. He sighed and waited a few moments before answering. I'm trying to ignore the noise, he said. Most of my friends have been pretty good about it, actually. Some don't know what to say, but no one has tried to bully me or anything. I laughed bitterly. Of course they haven't, I said. What's that supposed to mean? Well, you're you, aren't you? I asked. If I come into school with a new spot, the whole class jumps on me. You can say that you're transgender. Yes, that, and say it, Sam. The word isn't going to burn your mouth. You can tell people that, I continued, ignoring this. And no one bullies you because you've always been popular. So easy with people like you. Now it was his turn to laugh. You think it's easy? He asked. They might be saying mean things to my face. But do you think I don't know what they're saying behind my back? Even my closest friends are nervous of saying the wrong thing. You know, there's been a few parties lately that I wasn't invited to. I shook my head. Didn't know that. A few months back, I'd have been at the top of the guest list. Now I only hear about them on a Monday morning. Believe me, Sam, I may be getting a different type of response to this to you, but it's not any easier. I said nothing, trying to think this through. I still thought it would be easier if no one was making fun of you to your face. Can I ask you a question? He asked finally. If you want. How come you don't have many friends? What? I asked, turning to look at him in surprise. You never bring anyone to the house, you never go to birthday parties, you never talk about anyone from your class at school. I'm wondering for a while, but wasn't sure whether to ask you or not. I looked away from him, towards the wardrobe, the curtains, the mirror, anywhere my eyes could alight safely without having to look at him. I have friends, I replied eventually. I'm not trying to be mean, he said. I know that. I just worry about you, that's all. I have friends, I repeated. Is it because you can't read very well? He asked. I shrugged and took my hands out from beneath the sheet, staring at my fingers for a while. Nails needed trimming, but I hadn't thought to bring nail clippers with me on holiday. People think I'm stupid, I said. They call me names. That's what people do when they don't understand something. And because you're so good at sport and I'm so bad, people make fun of me. He said nothing for a while. When he did speak, I was surprised by what he suggested. Do you want to raid the minibar? He asked, and I turned to him, not sure what he meant. The minibar, he repeated, jumping out of bed and opening the fridge that stood beneath the television set. It was full of small bottles and cans. What do you want? He asked. There's Coke, Fanta, Sprite. Will we get in trouble? I asked. Who cares if we do? If they don't want us to take something from it, then they should have put a lock on the door. Here, he said, throwing me a Fanta, and I opened it, holding it over the space between our two beds as it fizzed up. He took a can of beer and climbed back into bed with it, sipping the froth from the top and licking his lips afterwards. He wasn't supposed to be drinking. He was only 17. I knew he liked it. Sometimes when we came back from a night out with his friends, he was all giggly. Mum complained that he smelled like a brewery, and the next day he'd lie in bed for hours and roar at me if I came anywhere near him. Okay, Sam, he said, it's 10 years from now. You're 23 years old. Where are you? I thought about it. I have my own place, I said. Good, and what else? It's a really big place, like a mansion. Of course, because I'm really rich. Naturally, but what are you doing? Driving my sports car down the motorway with the top down and my music blasting. Ed Sheeran, shut up. And how have you made all this money? I thought about it. I won the lottery, I said. Lucky, have you given any to me? A little, not too much. I didn't want to spoil you. Okay, he said, laughing. Now, back to real life, seriously. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? I shrugged my shoulders. Don't know, I said. Am I supposed to know? No, he said, taking a spare pillow that he'd thrown on the floor earlier and propping himself up against it. There's no reason you should know anything yet. Did you know what you wanted to be when you were my age? I asked. I knew some things, he said. I bit my lip. I could see where this was leading, and I wasn't sure I wanted to talk about it. All right, then, I said, what about you? 10 years from now, you're 27 years old. Where are you? Ah, he said, grinning and taking a long drink from his beer. Okay, well, first off, I'm a famous superstar writer. Brilliant. And every book I write sells 1 million copies and wins lots of awards. Goes without saying. And I have a beautiful girlfriend who loves me, and I love her too, but she's a crazy nymphomaniac who insists on having sex with me 10 times a day. I giggled, but then wasn't sure why I was laughing. What? He asked, sensing a change in my mood. Nothing, I said. It's not nothing, it's something, so tell me. Well, it's just, are you sure you don't want a boyfriend? I asked. Why would I want a boyfriend? I don't know, I said. You get that I'm not gay, right? He asked, sounding a little frustrated. I mean, it would be fine if I was, and I'd just come out and tell you, but I'm not. Maybe you just don't know that you're gay. One thing I do know is that you have a special box with a lock and key at the back of your wardrobe, and it's full of old copies of Mum's Vogue, and the underwear issues are always on top. Oh, I said, blood rushing to my face. It's okay, I don't care, he said, laughing. Don't look so embarrassed. For God's sake, it's no big deal. I'm not embarrassed, I said. Please, if I cracked an egg on your face right now, it'd be fried in about 5 seconds. I've got magazines like that too. And I know you found them because you snoop around in my room too. And what do you see in them? The ones in my room, I mean? Girls, I said. Exactly. Girls. Ever seen any boys? Well, sometimes I told them, but they're always with the girls, like doing things with them. I don't buy them for the boys, he said. I buy them because Mum and Dad won't take the parental controls off our computers. I know, I said. I hate that. So I'm not gay. Okay. I'm not. Believe you, I said, growing irritated. But if you think you're really girl, then shouldn't that mean that you want to be with boys? Not necessarily, he said. It's very complicated. Then tell me, I said, turning to him now, because I don't understand what's going on. Explain it to me. He sat back and sighed before taking another long drink from his beer, finishing it and guessing another. Do you know what one of my first memories is? He asked, and I shook my head. I was 3 years old and I'd just started at that play school we used to go to when we were little. Do you remember it? Yes, I said. I'd spent a year there too before starting real school. It's full of screaming kids and more Lego than I'd ever seen before or since. I'd really enjoyed it. It was for my first day, he said, and I was playing with a girl called Amelia and a boy called Jack. And Amelia said she needed a wee. So then Jack said he needed a wee. So naturally I needed a wee too. So all three of us got up to go to the toilets. And there were two, of course, one for the boys and one for the girls. But they were next door to each other. And when we reached them, Jack went one way and Amelia went the other. But I followed her. She screamed even though we'd barely got inside the door and pushed me out. And the teacher came over and told me that I'd gone to the wrong door, that the boys was over there, and I shook my head and refused to go in. No matter what she did, I said I wouldn't use it, that I was supposed to go to the girls' toilet. And you know, I was only about 3 years old. I didn't know anything about anything, but it just felt right to me to go to the girls. In the end, because she wouldn't let me in there, I wet myself and all the other kids were laughing and pointing at me. I didn't care so much about that. There was barely an hour went by when someone in that room wasn't wetting themselves for one reason or another. By the end of most days, it was like we'd all gone down on the Titanic. Anyway, Mum and Dad called in the next morning and they told me off. And from then on, every time I had to go, I had to use the boys' room. But from that day to this, it just never felt right. You always use the disabled toilet, I said quietly, remembering something I'd noticed a few years but never thought much about it. I just thought he was self-conscious. Yeah, I do, he said. I can't go into the girls, obviously. But I just don't feel right about going into the boys either. So that's it, I asked, thinking that this didn't seem like much of a reason. That's why you think you're a girl? No, of course not. It's just the first thing I remember, that's all. But my entire life has been built around moments like that. Asking for a doll for Christmas and being told no. Had to have a toy gun or a computer game. Been taken shopping for new clothes and just feeling that I was in the wrong part of the store. A magnet was pulling me to the next floor up. Probably won't remember this, but when I was about 12, I had a birthday party, and for the first time I didn't want to invite any boys to it, just the girls. I was at that stage where I hated boys, and Dad kept calling me Casanova, but he had it all wrong. Everyone's bodies were changing, and I felt like I belonged to the girls, not the boys. Does that make any sense to you? I said nothing. Think about it, Sam, he said. You're 13 years old now. If 4 people from your class came over to the house and spent an afternoon with you in your bedroom, who would you feel more comfortable around? 4 boys or 4 girls? 4 boys, I said. And yet you like looking at pictures of girls with very few clothes on, which is how it is for most people your age. But I wasn't always just different. I wanted to be with girls and look at girls. So, do you mean you are gay? I asked. I already told you. Now, I mean, if you think you're really a girl, but you like girls, doesn't that show that you are gay after all, like a gay girl? I suppose, he said, thinking about this. I don't know. That's where it gets really complicated. I still have to figure that one out. I don't know all the answers yet, Sam. I'm only 17. I'm still trying to understand all this myself. It's really difficult. What about football? I just happen to like football, he said. I'm good at it. Lots of girls are, you know. The thing is, I said, after taking a few minutes to think about all this, I hated it when you said you weren't my brother. Maybe I phrased it wrong, he said. One thing I know for sure, though, is that you're my brother and that you always will be. But you're a boy, I insisted. If you tell me one more time that I have a willy, I'm going to start thinking you're the one who's gay. The whole thing was becoming too puzzling for me, and I definitely couldn't joke about it. So I climbed out of bed and went into the bathroom. Once inside, I stared into the mirror and looked at my face. I was a boy, wasn't I? I touched my cheeks and chin. I felt above my upper lip for any sign of moustache, which I was hoping to kick in any day now. Looked inside my pyjama bottoms. I was a boy. If my brother Jason could suddenly change, then could I? Because I didn't want to. A knock on the door. Sam, he asked. Sam, are you okay? I'm fine, I said. Well, come out. I'm in the toilet. Yeah, but you're not going to the toilet, so come out, please. I waited a few moments, then unlocked the door, leaping quickly from the bathroom into my bed and pulling the sheets up to my chin. All right, he said with a sigh, walking slowly back to his bed and getting in. Tell me what you're most frightened of. I swallowed. What if it happens to me? I asked. What do you mean? What if I wake up one day and think I'm a girl? My brother Jason laughed and shook his head. Trust me, you won't. How do you know? I just know. Because I don't want to be a girl, I insisted, feeling tears spring up behind my eyes. I hate girls. You don't hate girls. No, but I don't want to be one. They're just stupid and wear perfume. They're always dancing and rolling their eyes at everyone, being mean and talking about Justin Bieber. Oh, for God's sake, Sam, he said irritably. There's a lot more to girls than that. Stop being such a dick. What? He sighed. Honestly, Sam, you don't have anything to worry about. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's that you and I are not alike on this. You're a boy, and you always will be. I'm tired, I said. I just want to go to sleep. Can we go to sleep? I don't want to talk about this anymore. You don't hate me, though, do you? Of course I don't hate you, I said. I just want you to get better, that's all. Get better? He sat up in bed and stared at me with an expression of such disbelief on his face that I wondered what I'd said wrong. Did you just say that you wanted me to get better? Yeah, what's wrong with that? So you think I'm sick? Is that it? That I've got an illness of some kind? I said nothing for a moment. I knew what I was supposed to say and what he wanted to hear, but I didn't care. Well, that's what Mum and Dad say, I told him, knowing as I said that I was being unfair, passing the blame on to them. All right, he said eventually. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Will you turn the light off? I asked, lying down and turning my back on him. Not just yet, he said. Close your eyes if you're tired. You'll be asleep soon enough. I did what he said. I closed my eyes, and after a few minutes, I changed the sound of my breathing to make it seem that I was asleep. But the problem with pretending to be asleep is you can't look up when you hear someone opening another beer, and another after that, and then falling down into bed to the sound of their tears. And you have to wait until they've finally fallen asleep before you can get up and turn off all the lights. And you don't get a chance to say sorry. Chapter 4 coming soon. Bye for now.